The boy who was misled by his peers. Kwame had always been his mother's pride. At 16, he was one of the brightest in his class. The boy who stayed late after lessons to help his friends understand their homework. His dream was simple but strong, to become a teacher and change lives the way his favorite teacher had changed his. His mother, a widow, sold tomatoes and onions in the market under the scorching sun just to keep him in school. Every time she handed him lunch money, she would smile and say, "Kwame, remember your future is worth more than gold. Protect it." But then came the boys. They were older, louder, and walked like they owned the world. They had flashy sneakers, expensive phones, and pockets always full of cash. They laughed easily and never seemed to worry about school. Kwame noticed how people respected them, or at least feared them, and he began to wonder if maybe they knew something he didn't. One afternoon, Kofi, the group's leader, clapped a hand on Kwame's shoulder. "School is fine, but money talks, my guy. You want to waste years before you eat good? Follow us, and in one night, you'll make more than your teacher earns in a month." Kwame hesitated. He knew his mother's warnings, but the more time he spent with them, the harder it was to say no. They made fun of him for being too innocent and called him Mama Egg's boy until he felt ashamed of the very values that once made him proud. The turning point came one moonless night. "Just a small job," Kofi whispered. "Quick in, quick out. No one will get hurt. We're just taking what's not being used." Kwame's stomach twisted, but the thought of going home and facing their ridicule was worse than the fear in his chest. Minutes later, they were outside a small shop. The sound of the lock snapping open echoed in Kwame's ears like a gunshot. His hands shook as he took a bag and filled it with goods. His heart was pounding so loud it drowned out their laughter. Then came the sound that froze his blood, the sharp wail of a police siren. The older boys scattered like shadows. Kwame ran too, but his legs felt heavy, his mind screaming, "This isn't me! This isn't me!" Before he could reach the alley, a strong hand gripped his arm. That night in the cold, damp cell, the reality sank in. The smell of sweat and rust filled his nose. The floor was hard beneath him. He stared at the barred window and thought of his mother, of how she was probably awake, praying for him, not knowing where he was. When she arrived the next morning, she didn't yell. She didn't even cry. She just looked at him, her eyes shining with quiet pain. "Kwame," she said softly, "poverty is heavy, but shame is heavier. I hoped you'd never carry either. Now you must choose which one you want to live with." The shopkeeper, remembering Kwame's good character, dropped the charges. He was released, but the whispers in the community followed him everywhere. His mother's trust, once unshakable, now felt fragile. Kwame cut ties with the boys. It was lonely at first, but he threw himself into his studies, determined to repair what he had broken. Years later, when he stood in front of a classroom as a teacher, he carried that night in his heart, not as a wound, but as a scar that reminded him how easily one wrong step can change everything. He learned a truth he now tells every student he meets. Not everyone who walks beside you is leading you forward. Some are just pulling you down. Be careful about the peers who chooses to call your friends, whose influence can change your destiny to good or bad. Please like, subscribe, and share for more content like this. Thank you.